Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everybody. This is our group work video for reading in literary context. My friends and I are in a group, so there are 4 members in it, including me, and we will be explaining some of the literary devices. They are metaphor, simile, and imagery. I will explain you metaphor first, and then the rest will be explained by my friends. But before that, let me recite Quran Surah Asr first. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا هل أدلكم على تجارة تنجيكم من عذاب أليم تؤمنون بالله ورسوله وتجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالكم وأنفسكم ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون صدق الله العظيم. Without any further ado, let's get to the topic. What is metaphor? A metaphor is a feature of speech that directly compares one thing to another for rhetorical effects. While the most common metaphors use structure X is Y, the term metaphor itself broad and can sometimes be used to include other literary terms like similes. These are the purposes of metaphor in writing. At their most basic, metaphors are used to make a direct comparison between two different things in order to describe particular quality to the first. But beyond simple comparison, metaphors have 2 clear purposes that will strengthen your writing. Number 1, to paint a picture fast. Sometimes, what you need the reader to understand can't be described in a few sentences. You just need to show them what you mean. In such instances, a metaphor works best. For example, you might want to show why your main character is frustrated with his wife. Instead of spending time describing her tedious behavior, you can have your character compare her to the lights in your apartment easily switched on and off. Number 2, to infuse some uncertainty into a situation. As much a metaphor can help illuminate a thought or a scene, it can also help to give it a touch of mystery. For example, if you'd like to hint to the reader that there is something ominous about a location, you could see a metaphor. The forest at night was beautiful. The trees were black knife slices, the moon bun rising in the sky. There are 4 different types of metaphor. Number 1, standard. A standard metaphor is one that compares 2 unlike things using the basic construction X is Y. Shakespeare's line, "All the words a stage," is a standard metaphor. Number 2, implied. An implied metaphor is a type of metaphor that compares 2 things that are not alike without actually mentioning one of those things. For example, a woman barks a warning at her child. Here, the implied metaphor compares a woman to a dog without actually mentioning the dog. Number 3, visual. A visual metaphor compares one thing to a visual image that suggests an association. Visual metaphors are commonly used in advertising. For example, a car manufacturer picturing their latest sports car alongside an image of a panther. The metaphor is used to suggest the car is as slick, fast, and cool as the wild animal. And the 4th one, or the last but not least, is extended. An extended metaphor is a version of metaphor that extends over the course of multiple lines, paragraphs, or stanzas of verse or poetry. Extended metaphors build upon. And do you guys know how to write a good metaphor? However, metaphors are a great way to liven up bland prose. Good metaphors are, the first one, image-driven. Metaphors are intended to paint a picture in reader's mind about a particular character and situation. When using a metaphor to describe something, make sure that the image is vivid as possible. The second one is not overly complex. Metaphors don't need to be written in heightened language or ideas. For Shakespeare, many good metaphors use everyday language and images that readers can immediately understand and relate to. The third one, original. This can be tough, but try and avoid glitches or metaphors that have been used in the past. Think about imagery you're trying to evoke to the reader and don't pick the first comparison that comes to your mind. Here are some examples of metaphor. One of the most examples of metaphor in English language comes from William Shakespeare's As You Like It, and the playwright writes, all the words a stage, and all the man and woman merely players. The rest are the example of metaphor in literature. They are, the first one, William Golding, Lord of the Flies, 1954, the sun is the west as was a drop of burning gold that slid near and nearer the seal of the world. The second one, William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, 1597. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east and Juliet is the sun. The last one, Emily Dickinson, Hope, 1889. Hope is the thing with feeders that perches in the soul. Well, the next topic is about simile that will be explained by my friend Siti Mahdiah Della. Let's meet her.
What is a simile? A simile is a figure of speech and type of metaphor that compares two different things using the words like or as. The purpose of a simile is to have described one thing by comparing it to another thing that is perhaps similarly unrelated it. For example, when Forrest Gump, the titular character from the 1994 film Forrest Gump, uses the simile, life is like a box of chocolate. The head is standing to show how unpredictable life is, in much the same way as picking a random chocolate from a box and not knowing what flavor you have until you bit into it. How do similes work? Similes often use hyperbole or exaggeration for emphasis in the simile. He ran as fast as lightning, the writer is suggesting the subject is actually as fast as lightning, but is using the hyperbolic simile to make the comparison and craft a compelling description. Similes are a great way to make writing more exciting and memorable without losing clarity. Writers often use similes to introduce context. Image likes boxes of chocolates into writing about abstract concepts like life. Readers are more explicitly aware of the direct comparison that's being made with a simile compared to a metaphor, which is often more poetic and subtly. How do you write a good simile? Similes are the essence of all comparison to write because they follow an easy formula. X is like Y, a good simile is 1. Simple and clear. You don't need to write like Shakespeare to write a great simile. Many strong similes use plain, everyday speech. Think about what you're training to compare and the context you're doing it in. Does the simile fit the emotion of the scene? Does it fit the character or characters is the scene? Visual. A simile is intended to paint a picture in the reader mean about a particular character or situation. Make sure that the image is as vivid as possible. Original. This can be solved by trying and avoid cliches or similes that have been used in the past. Example of similes in literature. The use of similes is widespread in literature of all kinds because using similes can create vivid description. Some popular Simile examples from literature include 1. Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, 1985. Time has not stood still, it has wasted over me, wasted me away, as if I'm nothing more than a woman of sand, left by a colorless child too near the water. Number 2. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, The Adventure of the Three Goblins, 1926. She entered white, ungainly struggle like some awkward chicken corn swinging out of its coop. Number 3. William Wordsworth's Daffodils, 1807. I wandered lonely as a fool, the voice on high or valleys and hills. The difference between simile and metaphor. A simile uses like or as. This is the most basic requirement of a simile, and as you want to notice, all similes use either like or as to make their comparison. A simile is often more obvious than a metaphor. Similes are relatively more obvious when compared to metaphors because of their use of like or as. Those two words act as flags to indicate to readers that the comparison is a simile. By using like or as, readers that X is Y as a metaphor word, but merely invite them to notice that X is like Y.
Definition of imagery. Imagery is a literary device that refers to the use of figurative language to evoke a sensory experience or create a picture with words for a reader. By utilizing effective descriptive language and figure of speech, writers appeal to a reader's sense of sight, taste, smell, touch, and sound, as well as internal emotion and feelings. Therefore, imagery is not limited to visual representations or mental image, but also includes physical sensations and internal emotions. Common examples of imagery in everyday speech. People frequently use imagery as a means of communicating feelings, touch, and ideas through descriptive language. Here are some common examples of imagery in everyday speech. The autumn leaves are blanket on the ground. Her lips taste as sweet as sugar. His words feel like a danger in my heart. My head is floating like a drum. The kitten's fur is milky. Here are the main types of plotting imagery. There are visual, appeals to sense of sight through description of color, light, size, pattern, etc. Auditory, appeals to sense of hearing or sound by including melodic sounds, silence, harsh noises, and even onomatopoeia. Gustatory, appeals to sense of taste through describing whether something is sweet, salty, savory, spicy, or sour. Tactile, appeals to sense of touch by describing how something physically feels, such as its temperature, texture, or other sensations. Olfactory appeals to sense of smell by describing something's fragrance or odor. Kinesthetic appeals to a reader's sense of motion or movement through describing the sensation of moving or the movement of an object. Organic appeals to and communicates internal sensations, feelings, and emotions such as fatigue, thirst, fear, love, loneliness, despair, etc.
How to write a good imagery? Number 1. Explain and specific. When you see, she went to her room and sat on her bed. Don't stop there. This is your chance to give us a glimpse into her life, her surroundings. What is her bed like? Is it queen-size with a bedspread that doesn't have a single wrinkle in it? A twin bed with faded seats that are riddled with holes. With a couple well-chosen details, you can say so much about your character and your story. Number 2. Be weird. Don't be afraid to get a little out there with your description. especially when it comes to similes and metaphors. Sometimes the strangest comparisons are the ones that work the best. Clickers are tired, predictable, and boring. Instead of describing the snowline, glittering stars falling from the heavens, compare it to as drifting to the air, burning cool. You can be dark, gross, optimistic, or anything else you want to be. Just get creative. Number 2 is the 5 senses. This is one of the 3 and 2 methods, of course, but it's a good reminder. Don't leave smell and taste out of your passage, the often forgotten senses in writing. But be careful not to make it a checklist situation either. You don't need every sense in every description, especially not all in a row where it will be painfully obvious what you're trying to do. Pick one or two that make the imagery unique and exciting. Example of imagery in literature. Example 1. The yellow wallpaper. Color Perkins German. The color is repelling, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. It is a dull, lurid orange in some places, a sickly sulfur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should had it myself if I had to live in this room long. In this passage of German short story, the narrator used photic imagery to describe the yellow wallpaper, which eventually ensnares her mind and body. The narrator's imagery effectively appeals to the reader's sense of sight, smell, and touch, so that the reader is as repulsed by the wallpaper as the story protagonist. By utilizing imagery as a literary device, German is able to evoke the some feelings of sadness, despair, fear, claustrophobia, etc. For the reader as he does for the narrator. In addition to this emotional effect, the artistic language used to describe the yellow wallpaper also enhanced its symbolic presence in the story. Example 2. The Red Wheelbarrow, William Carlos Williams. So much depends. Viewpoint, a red wheelbarrow, glass with rain, water beside the white chickens. This poem by William Carlos Williams features imagery and, in fact, is an example of images poetry. Images was a poetic movement of the early 20th century that veered away from the heavy description that was characteristic of Romantic and Victorian poems. Instead, the purpose of images was to create an accurate image or presentation of a subject that would be visually concrete for the reader. Images pose exhibit the strokes, succinct, direct, and specific language, favoring precise phrasing over set poetic method.
Well guys, that's all our explanation today. Hope you understand and hope you like this video. Before you leave this video, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on the notification bell so you won't miss any video of mine. Thank you so much for watching. See you on my next video. Bye bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.